Well, in my previous video, I said that if I remembered, I would talk about that Daily Telegraph story, the potential defamation claim there. And as many of you in the comments were kind enough to point out, I didn't remember, but now, thanks to your comments, I have. Oh, great, it started raining again. So what's this about? It's all on the back of this super injunction Afghan leakage thing. So just to give you the bare background there, because you can also go and watch the other video for more details. But essentially, a list, possibly in some sort of Excel format or something, of people who had assisted Allied forces in Afghanistan, sort of interpreters, drivers, people like that, was accidentally emailed from a military account to a non-secure account, and then it all got in the, there was the big risk of, oh no, this is all out in the public domain now, hence the super injunction. But the allegation is that the email was sent either deliberately or negligently by a member of the military. I mean, now it's even more serious, arguably, because apparently there's also 100 people on there. It's listed all sort of like our people, or like MI6 people and military intelligence. But at the time, that wasn't known, so that will become relevant. But anyway, so this email has been leaked. So what's the problem with the Daily Telegraph? Well, they published a story, and it featured a photograph. It showed a bunch of UK military personnel out in Afghanistan, and they'd pixelated everybody's faces bar one person. And then the headline basically just spoke and said about this list being leaked. Now, the person in the photograph, now I'm not going to mention who this is for a number of reasons. First of all, it's a potentially defamatory allegation. So I'm not just going to repeat it. Also, I can't remember the name of the guy. Also, I didn't read the actual article because it was behind a paywall. But that's also going to become relevant because it gives me a chance to talk about how the general sort of defamation rules will apply, or would have applied in this case. And I'll explain why that might not be necessary anymore shortly. So here's the thing, and his argument was, hang on, the implication here is I'm the person who leaked this. So, does he have a potential claim? Because there are a number of issues here, aren't there? First of all, did they name him? No, they just put the photograph up. So the first thing is this defamatory of him? Now, when it comes to defamation, you look at the extent of the publication. How many people saw the offending article? But then there can be a secondary thing when you get these where people aren't identified by name. It's how many people would actually know that was you? That's who was being referred to, because here it's just a photograph. So the pool of people who would recognise this person is probably smaller than the number of people who actually saw the article. But these are all matters for trial, because extent of publication, mainly that goes to damages rather than liability. Having said that, there is a case called Jamil, and in that particular case, it's a very serious allegation. It's an allegation of tourist funding to get around the algorithm. So obviously very serious allegation, but it was accepted at court that only 4 people had seen the offending article in the UK on the website, and 2 of those were the claimant and his lawyer. So they said, well, notwithstanding, yes, there is a potential claim here, and as a matter of law there's a claim, and yes, there's evidence here, the game is just not worth the candle. I mean, realistically, so few people saw it, half of whom are on your team anyway. Ooh, that's a bit slippy. It's been very, very torrential rain down here recently. So really, it's just a waste of the court's time. Because they used to say in the old days, the court system, they'd provide the pitch and the referee and let the parties play whatever game they wanted. Now they're saying, well, no, those days are over. There's a lot more judicial case management and judicial intervention now, just to knock things on the head at an early stage. But in this particular case, Daily Telegraph, lots of people read it, and maybe lots of people would have recognised him. Can you defame somebody through a photograph? Yeah, I mean, normally you say defamatory statement, but the statement can be anything. I mean, it could be a gesture. I mean, there's a famous case where somebody had been tried for murder and acquitted. However, Madame Tussauds put his waxworks in the Chamber of Horrors, or just outside the Chamber of Horrors actually, next to lots of convicted murderers. And he sued because he said the implication is that actually I shouldn't have been acquitted, and I really did it. And he was successful. So yeah, the mere fact that it's not actually, put in writing. So the next thing we come on to is what actually is the defamatory allegation? What's the meaning? And the way they do this is the courts would say, well, we're not going to listen to what the claimant and the soldier and the defendant, the newspaper, we're not going to listen at this stage to what they say the meaning is. The judge would just go, I'm just going to have a look at this and just see what I see. They say, well, okay, I see this photograph, I see the headline, and it may well be a judge would say, yeah, the meaning is that this is the person responsible for the leak. So what's defamatory about that? And this is going to become interesting because there are sort of three separate defamatory allegations here, aren't there? There's responsible for the leak in the first place, but then there's and as a result cost the innocent British taxpayer £7 billion, and also as a result 20,000 plus Afghanis moved here. So I'll break those down into, so because there are sort of three separate allegations really, or three separate stings, and they're all a bit interesting. Oh, that's quite nice down there. See if I can drop down there. Leaked the email. Well, yeah, I mean, arguably, because that's certainly disparaging in somebody's trade, profession or calling, because as a sort of military person, obviously breaching OPSEC is clearly something, accusing somebody of sort of either deliberately or negligently breaching OPSEC is clearly disparaging about, their professionalism. So I think they'd be all right on that one. Cost the British taxpayer £7 billion. Well, again, yeah, I think it could be arguably defamatory. I'll just turn around because there's some lovely views. It could arguably be defamatory, couldn't it? Because, costing the taxpayer money. I mean, the test for defamation is, would it cause people to shun or avoid you? Or would it lower your reputation in the minds of right-minded people generally? And we'll come on to that right-minded with the third one, because that gets very interesting as well. But yeah, I think it's certainly arguable that costing lots of money unnecessarily is defamatory. What about the third limb, and thus also let 20,000 Afghanistan people in? Well, that's an interesting one, because like I said, the test is right-minded people. So looked at it in isolation, the allegation is, as a result of what you did, 20,000 Afghans have moved here. Well, so what? Because, I'll give you another example from another case. There's a case, it was like a sports social club. And somebody reported the club to the authorities because if something about their licensing, they hadn't licensed some fruit machines or whatever. So, the council came around and fined them and took the fruit machines away or something. And somebody put a notice up going, so-and-so and so-so is a grass. And he sued because he said, I did not tell anybody this. How dare you say I would inform on you to the police? However, the claim was struck out because the court said the test is, oh, dogs. Hello, I'll just spin around because I know most of the comments are less you, more dogs. Hello. Hello, are you a good boy or girl?
Girl, yeah.
Hello, girl. Who are you?
Peggy Sue.
Hi, Peggy Sue. People are like you. Oh, she's so good, so cute. Right, where were we? I know you all prefer the dogs rather than me, so I should just follow Peggy Sue up the road. Where were we? Something. Oh, yeah. So anyway, the court struck the case out because they said, well, no, right-minded people would, of course, report law breaking. I mean, it's an interesting one, that, because, there could be quite devastating consequences. I mean, let's say somebody was involved in gang activity or something like that, or sectarian politics, and you said they were a tout or an informer, then that was a very nasty outcome. But it wouldn't be defamatory. So the issue here is, would saying you're responsible for lots of people coming over here be defamatory? Well, for those of us who are very much on the great set of lads we owe them, we should look after them, and come over. It might be. That's not very defamatory. It's like, as a result of your actions, lots of people are safe now. The other one is, of course, as a result of your actions, lots of people have come here and they're all committing crimes and taking resources. So what would the court say about that? I'll put it this way, I think this is one of those where angels fear to tread things. I don't think a court is going to come round and make a judicial finding of whether right-minded people are pro or against migration. I think they'd just say, well, that's just a matter of opinion, isn't it? So that's not actionable. So that would be my guess there. So we've got all the sort of elements there of potentially defamation, but the other hurdle is, to be defamatory, a statement must have caused you or tend to cause you serious harm. If you're a sort of in commerce, if it's like a business or it's something to do with you as a tradesperson, then you'd have to actually show serious financial harm. However, when it's an individual, it can be just harm generally. But you have to evidence this. It's not like we used to like libel, sort of permanent defamation used to be actionable per se. You didn't actually have to specifically show that you'd suffered any harm. They would just, infer it from the seriousness of the allegation. But now you have to actually prove it with evidence. But that could be things like, as a result of this, I've had lots of hounding on social media, people have been threatening me, people have been harassing me, people have been doxing me, all that sort of thing. So that would be a matter of evidence that it would have to show. Now, all this is irrelevant, by the way, because, like I say, this all came up on Twitter, and he'd copied the Telegraph in. I'm not saying I had anything to do with this, but I did sort of put some posts under this, just basically saying what I'm now telling you, but trying to cram it into 144 characters, which, knowing me, you can imagine it. Actually, I'm a big minimalist when it comes to legal writing. I mean, all my skeleton arguments are usually stuff like, we should win. So we did this, and very, very shortly afterwards, the Telegraph retracted the article, took it down, and they apologised to him. It was very nice. He did drop me a little thank you, bless him. But I doubt if that was to me. I mean, it might just be the Telegraph's own legal people went, But there's this bit about the paywall thing. Because the headline, just like the headline of the photograph, clearly defamatory. But what if the article, when you read the article, it says something in there like, oh, we're not saying it's this guy, we're just doing this for illustrative purposes anyway. Now, I didn't look at the article because I didn't want to pay the paywall. So what about all the other people going, well, I've just read the headline of the photograph? Well, we have this idea in defamation called bane and antidote. You have to take the whole article, the whole statement. You can't just cherry pick and say, well, this bit's defamatory, because if, when you read everything, it puts a different spin on it, then it's taken as a whole. So to give an example, what's the bit here? Gary Oldman is a terrorist. In the fantastic new film Air Force One. So, the first allegation is the bane, but when you actually know the full story, then clearly it's not defamatory. And this is the same thing here. Now, does it matter it's behind a paywall? Not at the moment, because English law has always said that, because, this all dates back to the days of newspapers. And we used to talk about below the fold and above the fold. So the headline would be above the fold, because they physically folded them on the newsstands. And as far as the courts are concerned, they say reasonable people, they might see a defamatory headline, but because your hypothetical reasonable person is not avid for gossip and scandal, they're reasonable by definition, they would sort of go, well, there might be more to this, so just because that headline's a bit sensational, I can't really read anything into that. I'd have to read the whole article. So that's how the law still applies. So basically the paywall equivalent, because if you wanted to actually read the physical newspaper, not just the headline, you'd have to actually pay for it. Let's go to do what I do, just go in the supermarket and just read everything at the stands. But currently that's how the law is being applied. I mean, this might all change, because especially now with how a lot of news is on social media, and you do only sort of see the headline, and then it's you've got to sort of click here to find further details, because it's all down to this idea of you have to take everything as a whole. And generally in defamation, what they say is anything you specifically link to and draw attention to, then the inference is the person, you're expecting them to read that as well, so we'll take that context in. But they don't expect people to sort of do any research. So it's like, oh, well, actually, this seems a bit more sensationalist, but if you actually did your own research and looked into the detail, you'd see actually it's not as bad as what they're alleging. It's like, well, tough. Unless you actually link to that to provide the extra context, we don't expect anybody to read it. And like I say, this is why I was saying defamation. If you're ever going to comment about anything, always link, either a proper link or a screenshot to what you're commenting about, because that really assists you with lots of defences, especially like opinion and things like that. Because the idea is, if you comment on something but you've linked to what you're commenting on, then people can go, well, what are you talking about? How on earth can you sort of say that based on what the facts are? Because if you've given people enough information to form their own views, then the court sort of expects that people will do that. Because like I say, it's all this reasonable, hypothetical sort of thing. So there you go. I think I've covered everything. I didn't say if I remembered on this one, did I? So yeah, I think that's everything. So as always, hope you found that vaguely interesting, vaguely informative, vaguely useful. This is a really nice walk. I hope my cardio's getting a little bit better and I'm not too panty and wheezy. I mean, luckily it does come back rather quickly. And I really like this walk. It's a lovely walk down from the river, and it's great because it starts at one pub I really like and it ends at another pub I really like, although I'm parked back at that end. So what I might do is I might just continue this walk for a bit, have a cup of coffee or something, maybe a sandwich, a bit of late breakfast, and then pop back. But there you go, and I'll just give you a little pan round this rather nice woodland path. I have to say it's a lot easier doing it in these conditions. I mean, the number of times I've come down here sort of, you know, at night with just a head torch on. Yes, I've slid down these banks a few times, but it's a really pretty view. So now I'll just get my thumbnail picture. So that's quite a nice one. I might just take another one just when I go back to the river. But anyway, yeah, coffee calls. So see you all next time.